So, what is going on with the defensive side of the ball with their consistency? The last three games, they've been bad. Illinois, they've been great. Michigan, they were terrible. Notre Dame. Does that mean excellent is coming up next? Or is it about playing at home versus playing on the road? I got that for you coming up on Locked On USC.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you. Thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, whatever platform you want to download this show on, you pick the platform. This show's going to be free. This show will always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So Coach Riley spoke to the media for the first time since the Domer debacle. I have some quotes about the defense, things that was talked about. So we're going to kind of mix that in. Also, some other stuff that he said. In the second segment, I want to actually use how another coach approaches the game, the philosophy, the way he sees it, and kind of do a contrast and compare how Lincoln approaches things. And it'll all come together, just trust me. And then in the third segment, I'm going to do some Locked On USC mailbag stuff. So right now, USC is 0-6. Lincoln Riley is 0-6, I should say, at USC in road games against top 25 teams. And that's just the facts. They are what they are. Since he took over the program, Lincoln Riley leading the Trojans, he is 0-6 on the road against top 25 programs. So I've been receiving a lot of messages from folks who have been, who not only played the game, they coached the game. And so since USC and Notre Dame played, my inbox inundated. That's great. Keep the comments coming. I love it. If you played, you coached, former Trojan, hit me up. Let's talk. I'm all about that. One thing, there was a common denominator, though, of all the messages I was getting. And they're just as confused as I am. That was a common denominator. It's like, what's going on? Why does USC's defensive coordinator, Antonlynn, stick with the same scheme and alignment instead of adjusting? Why did he stay in a pass defense when Notre Dame was just running the ball? They knew they couldn't throw the ball. And it's not like USC plays tight coverage when they're playing pass defense. It's pretty much a bend, don't break type of thing. So why not adjust was the question. Why weren't they, more sound against the run? The concern is about the consistency and why USC's defense, they play like a roller coaster. I mean, we're 3 games in now against teams with, I'll call them big trench monsters, right? Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame. That's a good sample size, right? And you can go back to last year and where USC was supposed to be making improvements during the offseason. So against Michigan and Notre Dame, nobody is going to be able to blame the defensive front seven or their effort on food poisoning, like that was the case, against Illinois. The Trojans, one game after a bye week against Illinois, they looked like a damn good physical football team. Those are Coach Riley's words. We're a damn good physical team. I mean, they dominated the Wolverines in the Coliseum, ragdolled them the same way Illinois took advantage of USC. So how do you go from looking like a championship contender one week to looking like fool's gold the next week? Well, Coach Riley had a chance to watch some film. And here's what he had to say after Tuesday's practice. He met with the media. Coach said that USC, he thought that his team's level of physicality, and I'm using finger quotes, was honestly about the same in its loss to Notre Dame as the win over Michigan. So he wasn't concerned about the effort or how physical USC was playing. What he said was this: It was really assignment based. We didn't play nearly as in sync as we did the previous week. We've got to play cleaner. We were motivated and ready to play, but those games, you've got to combine that with playing really good ball and being really in sync. We're going to dedicate a lot of time to working on that during the bye week, and here in these last several opportunities, that's got to be at its very best, end quote. So the only thing I disagree a little bit with the physicality part. All right. Not enough time. I'm not going to arm wrestle Coach Riley over it, but I thought USC looked more physical against Michigan. Maybe it's because they won, but it just didn't look the same. Especially if you were watching the way that defensive line was getting pushed around. Not so much on the offensive line, more so on the defensive line. Look, I'm not saying that USC's players should have been, throwing punches like Notre Dame players were. However, it does show me that Notre Dame was playing the role of the aggressor more. Now they were dumb; they were undisciplined penalties. But when USC and Notre Dame plays, you have to anticipate that type of intensity. So you have to match it. Now, yeah, usually the second person who punches gets called for a flag, but they weren't calling Notre Dame for any of them. Again, and no, this is not complaining about the officiating. All you fans out there of Notre Dame. That's not. I have not once blamed the loss on the officiating. I'm just pointing out that certain things helped Notre Dame, and those non-holding calls were big beneficiaries. So that's all. Look, Coach Riley, what he and his team saw on film, the film doesn't lie. They played horrible assignment football. So yeah, let's just give benefit of the doubt. They were physical. They were tough. They brought the intensity. They were ready to play. They weren't ready to play if they weren't assignment sound. I mentioned this on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, and I pointed this out over on the Inside the Trojan Huddle show that I do at wearesc.com. All three levels of the defense were out of sync. When you just go look at that first big run. Defensive tackles, parted like the Red Sea. The linebackers, I have no idea what was going on. Zero idea. And Bishop Fitzgerald, who was crashing hard from his deep safety position, I'm not sure what angle he was on, but he was running to the opposite side of where the run was coming. Coach Riley said, hey, that should have been a 4-yard gain at the most. I don't know. So, again, everything was out of sync. They were getting pushed around up front. They got no help at the second level, and the safety reads, they were just as bad. So now the question becomes this. Why, going into game number 8, is this still a huge issue? Is it about playing at home versus playing on the road? USC looked fantastic at home against Michigan. They look not as fantastic against Illinois and against Notre Dame. So is it about playing at home versus playing on the road? I know that plays a role, don't get me wrong. But, then it comes down to, is it player IQ, poor coaching? What? Last year, USC had a really easy road schedule as far as the competition level is concerned. Think about those games that USC played on the road and the ones they lost. Michigan, I'm not even including Michigan because talent level wise, USC and Michigan there's really no separation. But, Coach Riley was asked about his record on the road. And this is what he said. We put ourselves in a position to win a lot of these games. You've got to go win them. I get it. In your ascent as a program, that's one of the last steps because it's the hardest thing to do when he's talking about winning on the road, end quote. Fine. I agree. But what about those losses to Minnesota, Maryland, Washington? I know it's all about the ascent. Baby steps, right? The LA Times beat writer Ryan Karchi, he asked Coach Riley, I thought it was a really cool question. It was a different way of asking, what did you learn from your stupid call? He asked Coach Riley about the most important lesson he's learned as a play caller. And you could just tell Coach Riley got the inference because he pursed his lips, took a few seconds to answer. because he just wanted to make sure, he understood where the question was coming from and answered it accurately. And I liked his answer. You can't be scared. You can't. You got to call what you believe is best in the moment, not what fans think or announcers think or anybody else, end quote. So Coach Riley is right in this regard. You have to be confident. You have to believe in yourself. With that being said, there are times to be overconfident, and there are times when you have to be a little bit more conservative, read the room, so to speak. In the next segment, I have a different coach's point of view, and I think it's a pretty interesting perspective. And it has to do with one of the coaches who played against USC last year. One last note before I close out this segment. Coach Riley said he's hopeful. He's hopeful that USC will have both Elijah Page and Killian O'Connor back for the Nebraska game in 2 weeks. Quote, I think it's more realistic now. Wouldn't say we're there for sure, but it's definitely more realistic than it's been here the last several weeks, end quote. So yeah, getting those two guys back will not hurt USC's chances at all. Okay, so here's your hint, obviously. Segue. Remember what PJ Fleck said last year after the game against USC? Remember what he said specifically? I'll remind you coming up in the next segment. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, and that's because Mazda has more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. And that was recorded as of August 2025. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. And here's another great feature and benefit. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Peloton, they're also a sponsor of the show, and Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus. It's all powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. It doesn't matter whether you're running, lifting, cross-training. You can do that all with your favorite instructors. And this is training reimagined, because Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated. They're going to help you reach your peak performance. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can literally go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged depending on how you're feeling. So you get to work out tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. So I just want to remind everybody, because I have to keep reminding myself, despite how poorly USC played defensively, and I gave my grades out. I gave them a C grade on offense, essentially. They still had a chance to win that game. I know they lost by 10. The game was actually closer than the score. Somebody said, no, it wasn't, Mark. They were getting their butts kicked. They couldn't stop Notre Dame from running for 300 yards. That's all true. USC still had a chance to win that game late in the game. I mean, it just sucks, because for every mistake that Notre Dame made and said, here, take the win home with you, USC said, nope, hold our beer. We can do anything you can do too. We know how to throw away a game. We know, because we're better at it. We've done it more often. Anyway, a poster over at wersc.com suggested that the community over there watch PJ Fleck describe his view on what happens during a game. This is what Coach Fleck said. It was on the Big Ten Network, so you can actually go check it out yourselves. He basically said games aren't won. That games are the games that are won are lost just a little less than the other team lost it. Does that make sense? I mean, here's how it'll make sense. You hear coaches say it all the time. The team that makes the fewest mistakes will win. Absolutely. We also hear them talk about situational football all the time, right? Well, here's what Coach Fleck said on the Big Ten Network show. Again, keeping in mind, he looks at it this way. The games that are won are lost just a little less than the other team lost it. So who makes the fewest mistakes? Taking all that into consideration. So Coach Fleck said this, look, if you just are talking about offense and you play 60 snaps, those are 60 completely different situations. Those 60 plays are their own identity, and it has its own situation built in. Not just the situation of down and distance, but the situation of what part of the field are you on, how the game is going, what's the flow like. In other words, read the room. A 3rd and 3 from the other team's 30-yard line is a different call than a 3rd and 3 from your own 30-yard line, especially from the quarterback standpoint, because you're already in field goal range, right? So using that first example, plus 30 versus the negative 30, excuse me, you're going to call plays differently because you're already in scoring position. Look, he said, and he continued, you can go on whether you're backed up, coming off short yardage, goal line, 1st, 2nd, 3rd down, 2-minute offense, 4-minute offense. It goes on and on. So taking all that into consideration, what Coach Fleck said, is this where Coach Riley struggles with situational play calling? My question to the audience, are you listening? Of course you're listening. You're watching. Hit me up with your comments. In the first segment, Coach Riley, I read you his quote. He said, you have to be fearless. All those things that Coach Fleck mentioned, though, those are also true. You also have to be situationally aware. Read the room. In other words, what's your best chance of being successful in that moment compared to being fearless? Dialing up that trick play with Mekhi Lemon. Last year, after Minnesota beat USC, Fleck said, he talked about his approach to how the game came to fruition. He just like, you know what, we're going to, we understand who Coach Riley is, and we're just going to kind of tailor our game plan to that. So following his team's victory over USC, he noted that he said it, and I talked about it before on this show multiple times. He noted that USC was running the ball really effectively, but they still had the urge to throw it. Remember that 4th quarter? Remember how Woody Marks went from doing whatever he wanted, running the ball, and then he just kind of disappeared. Coach Fleck said, you could just tell they were running the ball, but they still wanted to throw the ball, end quote. He was talking about USC's play calling late in the game, where USC literally abandoned their successful running game. And when you stopped running the ball, Miller Moss, he threw that interception, and it led to the game-winning drive. Again, Woody was running however he looked like Jeremiah Love. He was just running. He wasn't doing as well as Jeremiah, but you get my point. He was picking them up, putting them down, picking up chunks of yards. And then for the last 10 minutes of game time, did not touch the ball. Coach Riley ghosted him. It made no sense. Everyone knows Riley likes to be fearless with his play calls. Everyone understands that. Riley will say, it's being aggressive. What Coach Fleck was talking about on the Big Ten Network was going back to making the fewest mistakes wins. So I guess right now, during his ascent to the top, USC, Coach Riley, maybe they should start following Coach Fleck's philosophy, the way he approaches the game, especially with play calling on the road. I don't know. I just thought I'd bring that up. It was just a different way of looking at things compared to Coach Riley. And I don't know. I think there's a lot to what PJ had to say. Am I saying, oh, he should be USC's coach? No, it's not even what I'm coming close to saying. But it is an interesting way of looking at things, getting a different perspective. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. Hit me up in the comments section. If you're watching on YouTube and you have not subscribed yet, why? Click that red subscribe button. You keep coming back. You're watching the show. Even all the haters out there, just click that red subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. Click that bell notification so you don't miss another episode. All right. Got one more segment to go. We're going to do get into a little Locked on USC mailbag stuff. It's coming up next. College football is back. Yeah, and I could not be more excited. I'm emotional. I'm passionate. You know how much I love the game, the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Sometimes getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. You got all those endless queues you got to stay in line for, the hidden fees, the price jumping while you're waiting in line, all of that. It sucks. That's why you should be using GameTime, the app that gives it the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up GameTime, and literally in just a couple of taps, I saw some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before I checked out. So take the guesswork out of buying your college football tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms will apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, and you're going to get $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download GameTime today. All right. No, I'm not the only person here who has an opinion. My opinion is usually more right than others, but I want my listeners, my everyday viewers, I want your opinions as well. So once a week, pull up a few questions, answer them. Here's this week's edition. This question came from 13 different people. So nobody gets credit, but there were a lot of you who are wondering, why is Jaden Mayava not running the ball? I don't know. Earlier this year, Coach Riley kind of mentioned that, oh, you know what? Last year, Jaden was playing with an injury. Okay. What's the deal this season? He's not hurt. I mean, we know he can scramble and make something out of nothing. We've seen that happen numerous times. So it begs the question, why are there not any designed RPOs? Why is he not keeping the ball? I mean, everyone knows the deal when they bring in Husan Longstreet. You know what's going to happen. He's going to take the snap. He's going to run left or right, maybe between the tackles. That's what happened against Notre Dame. He ran right, and it looked like he was going to pick up a few yards, but that Notre Dame safety had the perfect angle, and he's got some closing speed. It kind of reminded me of Taylor Mays when he got that Cal running back up there a few years ago, well, many years ago. Javid Best, I think that's who it was. Speedster. Anyways, Taylor Mays closed that gap in a hurry, and Javid never picked up the down or the distance, whatever. But that's what that play reminded me of. So you got to give credit to the other team sometimes. So again, I guess what's the deal this season? Why isn't he running? Why are there no design plays for him? Because if you're watching the games, I mean, the opposing defensive ends, they're just crashing down all the time on those calls. They know Jaden won't pull it and run. And that was the same situation as last year when Miller was running the offense. That was the whole thing about bringing Jaden in, his ability. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see it over these last few opportunities that Lincoln Riley was talking about. This next question was from Stephen Gernenz, Gernenz, Gernenz 8217, as well. I want to et al. So it's Stephen and friends. This comment was also very popular. Mark, if the stupid play call had worked, it wouldn't have been stupid. Guess what, guys? If I was 5 inches taller and faster, I could have been a really great athlete, not just a good one in high school. Here's the thing: if those two letters, it's a big word. It's a big word for just 2 letters. Look, all kidding aside, USC was trailing by 10. They had just converted a big first down on that long pass play. They were set up. They had Notre Dame on their heels. You don't call that play at that time. That's not the right situation to do it. I'll say it again. Read the room. Put your guys in the best position to succeed. I don't think Coach Riley did that. And I think Coach Riley will admit it again. It was a stupid call. I don't care that the players did not execute. Doesn't matter. Don't put them in that position. Do that stuff at home, not on the road, especially in the weather conditions. I talked about it. Moving on. Still like the question, though. All right, this next one is from Kenneth Brown, 8989. Mark, why did USC bring in Keyshawn Silver and Jamal Jarrett through the transfer portal if they're not going to use them? A lot of people have been wondering that. Great question. My answer is they're not playing up to their potential. The size of the player doesn't necessarily mean their heart is as big as that player. I'm not saying they have no heart. That's not what I'm saying. But Coach Henney and the staff, I'm sure they have their reasons. So yeah, you can look at it and say, oh man, 6'5", 350 pounds, 6'6", 330 pounds, big dogs. When I say do they have the heart, I mean, are they willing to give every single ounce they have every snap? Are they willing to lay it on the line? I don't know. The coaching staff apparently has their reasons why they're not playing. But it is an interesting question. You brought them in to be those run stoppers, to have an impact, because that's where USC needed to improve compared to last year. They needed that size in the interior, and they had the depth. But yeah, I guess the question becomes, what's happening with the development part during practice? I don't know. I don't have the answer we all want. I'll try and find out, do a little deep dive, but right now, I just have to assume that they're not playing fundamentally sound. They're not executing. They're not assignment sound. What else could it be, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. USC's got some good players. Devin Tompkins, Jade Abasari, Jakeem Stewart is going to be a dude. I mean, he's already a dude, but he's still got the training wheels on, so to speak. Let's give him a chance. Next year will be his year. By the end of the season, I mean, he's already a regular contributor. I'm saying by the end of the season, he might even just end up being a starter. Who knows? He's going through that transition of high school to football. And let me remind everybody, he only played, 10, 12 games in high school? He's going to be a force. All right, everyone, thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen today. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Big Ten show with Craig Sheeman. He breaks down everything in this conference, all the exciting stuff that's going on, the rivalries, championship stuff, all that stuff. You can find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just like Locked On USC is your team every day. I will be back here again tomorrow with another episode. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.